Welcome to the Moonshot Podcast, the podcast where we explore business growth, inspire innovative marketing strategies, and explore the world of company culture. Now here are your hosts, serial entrepreneurs and best-selling authors, James Philip Arbuckle and Kane Carpenter.
Would you agree that Cal has gotten better at moderating?
I figured you'd start there. Yeah, I think so.
Pretty sure I saw that in the comments on the video. So shout out to whoever commented on the All-In video about Cal. Yeah, it's been like a great, I think, for a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, since the show started, it just, the interruptions, the combativeness, and it's like, dude, just let them talk. Just, the people, like, if you're in person and someone keeps interrupting you, you just want to smack them, like pimp slap them. Don't act like you pimp slapped somebody before. You're like, yeah.
Never gone through my head.
You're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, Kane.
Yeah.
So like rate cuts. There's that, the people were thinking that there'd be a politically motivated rate cut in Q1. And, whether it was politically motivated or not, it's out the window now, don't you think?
After the CPI print?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, gas prices are down around here, which is nice. Mine is diesel. Diesel's still up. I drive a diesel truck. Still $4 a gallon around here, but hey, I could complain about other things. But if you saw, like, if this Middle East stuff breaks out, which I think they were talking about, on All-In, like, we saw what happened when the gas prices went up. Inflation went up quite a bit. So if, even a modest uptick in crude, how far do you think it's going to delay a rate cut?
I mean, it's got to be at least a couple of quarters. But rate cuts aren't guaranteed is kind of my thought lately. Historically, rate cuts have come, they're like almost a reactionary measure, right? Like something happens in the economy, hence we cut rates. And just because we solve for CPI and we solve, that doesn't necessarily mean that rate cuts are guaranteed, right?
No, I think it also is, do you believe there's a political influence on that? And if you don't believe it, then there might not be a rate cut for a while. If you think there is some influence from the government or the administration, you're going to probably see one or two cuts at some point before the election. And I just don't see how we cut anytime soon. Right now, shit's still expensive, Kane. Like,
yeah.
We're looking for a little bit of, I saw a listing. I know it's not like directly correlated, but there was the hope that real estate was going to come down a little bit. And how's that looking on your side? You see it coming down right now?
No.
I had a listing through MLS come through, and 3.4. It was listed for 3.499, and 3,300 square feet. So it's like $1,000 a square foot, Kane. Which, New York, high rise, something nice in Chicago, $1,000 a square foot's not out of the conversation, depending on what the building is. But like in Michigan, it's a fork ton of money, right? And the thing is, I know the house. I'm like, ain't no goddamn way that thing's worth $1,000 a foot. And you go look at what they were trying to sell it for, before COVID, and the thing went up triple. They were $300, $350 a foot. A light remodel on the inside with like Home Depot quality type stuff. It came nothing nice. $1,000 a foot. And I'm like, you're just smoking rocks.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And I know that one's abnormal, but I've seen similar things around Bloomfield and Birmingham where, yeah, and they're probably not coming down, but man, it's hard to digest. And I got bacon and eggs one day, and I paid $20 because I stopped at a market. That same bacon and eggs was still $16 at Kroger. And it's like, all right, maybe prices aren't going to go down, but can we stop the year over year? Like, it's already bad enough, but they keep stacking it. Like, I don't know do you want to see rate cuts anytime soon?
Yeah,
More.
that's a good point, right? Like in that sense, you'd want rate hikes.
I was talking to a guy at lunchtime, and actually 2 conversations in the last couple days here. One was making 100,000, and one was talking about making 200,000. And I just made the joke, and I'm like, shit, you can't even go out to Chili's on 200,000 anymore. And he laughed, and he's like, kind of true. Not in the sense of obviously you can go to Chili's, but when you think about your dollar does not go very far right now. You have to make more money.
Mhm.
Like, you have to find ways to keep generating income or growing your monthly income, and things are just so expensive. And then the guy I was talking to today he makes like 100. Dude does good. So he's like, man, it's to just go out to the bar. Like, I got 2 beers and some chicken wings, and it was like $34 or something. And I'm like, well, shit, that's my bill at Panera Bread, right? I mean, again, how much you spent at Panera Bread the last time you went?
Yeah. It's painful for sure.
And you gotta think, like, they're going to keep throwing. They say inflation's down, but a lot of these things. Well, wait a minute. Does CPI include food?
It.
No
I'm not
food, no
sure.
housing.
There's a way that they can do that calculation.
It's something. No, like, no energy, no housing,
Something like
or
that.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know if food, but man, if you're counting, food's expensive. Like, I said before in an old podcast, years ago, I gave my dad an American Express card, and I'm like, just buy whatever you want. Worst case scenario, what's he gonna do? He's gonna buy like 10 Stouffer's frozen dinners. Um, but I'm like, go, just get whatever you want. Stop. I was trying to get him to not eat shit. We grew up with no money, so he's still, even to this day, no matter how successful I am, he'll still go to the store and buy the cheapest stuff on the planet. I'm like, just get whatever you want. So, anyways, I see what he charges, and he used to go to the store and spend like $70 a week. Well, now it's like 150.
Mm.
And I'm like, are you buying steaks? Did you get a 24 pack of Budweiser? He's like, I buy the same stuff. And that's like how much his groceries. He's like, son, if I didn't have you, I'd be screwed, because his Social Security, he retired with no money. His Social Security went up like $150 or something a month. And if you look at like utilities and all this stuff, there's no way you're keeping up with that. So imagine,
Yeah.
could you imagine being fixed income right now with no money in the bank?
No. It's hard.
It'd be tough, man. So I want the economy to boom, but at the same time, it's like, man, cutting rates, what is that going to cause another problem? And I guess we'll find out. But what's the one thing you bought lately that you bought and you're like, damn it?
And I feel that way about most things.
Oh,
But let's see. Well, I mean, the last kind of big ticket thing was with my family and I. We went on vacation, so that was like a damn it kind of expense. But I think the biggest shock for me usually is it's still the grocery store. It's still like we'll go into like a Target run, and you just can't get out of there for less than like $100. It doesn't matter what is in the cart. It feels like I pick up 7 things and it's like $100.
I mean, no one's ever gotten out of Target for less than $100. Let's be honest. Like, I ran in for like some Old Spice, and then it's like, what do you mean 143?
Yeah.
That's Target for no, but like, no joke. It's I always talk about. Actually, I'm going to do that when we're done with this. I'm going to jump on Instagram. I'm going to run a poll and say, at what point your grocery bill? At what point are you not going to bag your own groceries? Like, if I got a can of spaghetti sauce and like a Hershey bar, I'm going to hit the self-checkout line, ding, ding, in the bag, I'm out of there, right? But I feel like it got to the point to where if it's $100 or more, I'm not bagging my own groceries.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that before because I've now seen the market has doubled or even tripled the amount of people they have at the registers now. Because the shit's got so expensive. I'm not spending $300 here and bagging my own groceries. I'm going to throw that poll up there. But it's like, to just go to the store and then you get some, I buy nice stuff. I get air chilled, whatever Bell and Evans chicken. Like, okay, it's not the chicken in the bag I used to get for $3 a pound full of the hormones. It is nice chicken, so it's expensive, but by the time I get some chicken, this, that, and that, it's $100.
Yeah.
Now we're not talking no wine, no extras or nothing. Decent bottle of olive oil, $25.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, what's a pack of Kerrygold right now? $8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll put a half a stick in my coffee in the morning. Like it's, and then so I'm talking to the guy about making 100. Like, man, 100 used to be a decent life, and it's not a bad life now. But how fast he eats through that money, because taxes are, you realize how like oppressive taxes are. If you're that like single person, no kids, and you make like 100 to 300. Like you get zapped on taxes, man. There's no fancy tax shelters. Dude probably gets like $55K cash. And what is that leaving you? $4,700 a month or something. And you got a couple G's going to a house payment.
Right.
It's like, hell, pay for your Verizon bill, some snacks, even a small car payment, car insurance. I don't know if you saw car insurance lately, but all the
Mine just
insurance,
renewed. Yep.
all going through the roof.
Yep.
And that dude's out $100,000. He's zapped.
Yeah.
Imagine having 2 kids at home. So inflation's just, it's not that it's the inflation, it's like the damage is done. Like, these are the new prices. And it's, if something was $10 and inflation's 3%, it's 13. But if it's now $20 and 3%, like it compounds. It sucks.
Well, I think also something that it kind of gets talked about less and less, but it's the impact of the labor market on prices, right? Like, I think empirically, like energy costs or they weren't what they were at the height of post COVID, at least, right? Like, it's the fact that, like your example about the $100,000 individual, that person needs to go find, call it 125 or 150, and if you have that across the entire society of people that are chasing higher salaries, with the base that we have in the U.S. economy, which is still 1.5, 1.6 jobs per working individual, like what needs to break first for us to see inflation really come down? My best guess is that something needs to happen in the labor market such that power comes out of the hands of labor a little bit. Not that we want it, of course, right? As an individual, I'm all about trying to go get more money, but there is this kind of spiral at the moment.
I mean, the Fed talked about the, wage inflation spiral, and it's a double-edged sword in a sense, because it's got to stop at some point. If it doesn't stop, it's going to get bad. We might even be on the verge of bad right now.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, if things keep getting expensive, I can't get mad at people for wanting more money. I get it. You got to live. Like, I'm invested in bars and restaurants. It's not that uncommon to have, a great employee show up and go like, look, man, I need $3 an hour more, or I got to quit. And it's not, I don't think they want the $3 an hour to go to Cabo. I just think that they saw how expensive their electric bill was. And then the food, and then the insurance. Like, they're like, I don't want to take on a third or fourth job to do this. And so I get it, but at some point, if we can't halt it, this is what's going to keep happening. And, they need more money, so they're going to leave, and the next place pays more. Look, man, at some point, and the wages are going up, and then my food costs are going up. You want to keep food costs, what, 28 to 32%? Man, sometimes in the last 2 years, we had food costs over 40%.
Yikes.
And then labor's going through the roof. It's not sustainable. And I saw quite a few restaurants close up lately, and I'm like, dude, I get it. At the same time, I'm like, that sucks. And if we don't stop that spiral, it's going to put an end to everybody. Or, when I asked you, like, the most expensive thing that, you did lately, it's, me being me, I had like a tomahawk, wood-fired tomahawk for dinner, and I think somewhere on the way home, I stopped at McDonald's too. And, because, you know me, that's how I do it. And yeah, it's a long night. I got to get a snack. But
Yeah.
call it a high-low, right? It's you got the I had the high-end thing, and you had a low thing. Like, hey, it wasn't like White Castle, which I would do, but there wasn't one near. Stopped at McDonald's, and a quarter pounder with a fry and a Coke was $11.57 or something. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Like, for what? Like, I'm gonna. Kane, it's crazy. So if you're average Joe and you're making 50, 60K right now, and then you got to stop there, and that's one meal. You got to spend $20 a day. Okay, eat at home, buy the growth hormone chicken, hit H Mart, get the big ass 50-pound bags of rice, get the big bags of like black beans there is ways to eat cheap. It can be done, but should it be that difficult to just have an honest meal every day? I don't think so.
No, I agree. So going back to the initial premise of this part of the conversation, who do you ask to break the back of this first, right? Who stops the spiral first? Do you ask the individual, like employees, people who are working on a salary, and say like, okay, we have to stop asking for more wage increases to match prices, or do you do it kind of the way that it is, which is hike rates such that you can pull money out of the system and do it more naturally? We said, well, the guys on the show were saying rate hikes are unlikely, or rate cuts are unlikely. I'm inclined to believe it.
What's the traditional way? Raise rates, which still ends up imposing a penalty on. Look, man, the people that can afford it the least right now are also the ones that probably have quite a bit of credit card debt. And their credit card, I don't even know what the hell credit card rates are. Were they 15% before? 12%? 18? Now they're 22, 25, 20.
Mhm.
Now your credit card payment's going through the flipping roof. And if you need to buy a new car, if you got money and you don't like the rate, you just pay cash. Well, that's not most people. So now if you need a new car, you got to go pay 7, 8, 9%. So it's the high rate. No matter what, those people end up screwed. They either have to suck it up and struggle to get by and stop asking for more money, or we keep raising rates, which still imposes a penalty
Yeah,
on
that's
them.
fair.
And
Yeah.
the thing is, they took too long to break it. I think is the problem. Maybe they didn't raise rates fast enough. I mean, they were off to a slow start raising rates. Like they thought it was going to be transitory. They should have found a way to break it fast. And breaking it fast would have killed demand. Killed demand. You think there'd be some part of like a deflationary period, right?
Yep.
Demand drops, unemployment goes up a little bit. A healthy unemployment they say is what, like 5% or something, 4.5, 5.
That was textbook. Yeah.
And we didn't. It's the economy was extremely resilient. We kept like delaying the school loan payments and all these things that just kept money sloshing around the system. And maybe it'll result in a soft landing. I still feel like that landing's gonna be one of those 747s landing in the 60-mile-an-hour crosswind. It's gonna land, but you also gonna think you might have died, right? And microphone just went flying. So I mean, it's been resilient, right?
To say the least. Yeah.
Just to say the least. And the housing market hasn't crashed, unemployment hasn't gone up. We continue to see layoffs in the outplacement business, though. That's been steady.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
What else was what was the next one? The cap table software.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to reflect on that a little?
I'm gonna be honest. I fast forward past that shit.
I figured.
I did like the 30 seconds and I'd listen for a few. Look, man, I like All-In and I want to do the All-In after show because I feel like there's more stuff to talk about, but there's some things I just don't flip and care about. And the only thing I caught was Chamath saying like, what is so hard about this? We did this shit in Excel.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you're Facebook and you have this massive that shareholder, vesting period. I'm sure it's complicated, but at the same time, I'm thinking of when I started my recruiting companies, I made our own like CRM system. Like back then it was Act, and now it's Salesforce or whatever, or applicant tracking system, right? And I tried it a couple different ways. I did it with like FileMaker Pro and an Access database with a front end, and it's nothing like today. But I needed a hold of a first name, a last name, a phone number, an email address, some notes. You know what I mean? Like we could parse resumes in at one point using the parser. It wasn't rocket science, game. Like,
Right.
do you need this? I spend so much money on SaaS products now for the service companies. It's insane.
Hmm.
And to do a lot of shit that's like, man, you probably could just do that in Excel or a basic database. So when Chamath said that, I'm like, I get it, the cap table, this and that. It does probably simplify it. You keep track of everyone's stuff. And I have companies where we give away phantom equity, for example, just to make it easy. And, I get it, keep a track of all that stuff. Or you just send people a DocuSign and file that shit
Yeah.
away. Did you catch anything other than that?
No, that was the part that if we were going to talk about anything, would be the part which is, um, like, what do you think? I mean, we're going, like you said, dude, we're going through renewals now on certain SaaS things that we were subscribed to. They're just so expensive, especially when you start to get more than a handful of team members on it. It just like at some point we've got to start asking why. And the AI stuff that's happening. I think Chamath's stuff around building things 80% of the product at 10% of the cost, I think is interesting, because I bet there is traction for stuff like that, because so many tools that we use are just prohibitively expensive. And every year there's
No,
like a 9-10% increase for like no underlying benefit.
no. I mean, you got a renewal for the one company that's at 9-10%, and there's been no new features.
Yeah, exactly.
And if there was, it's shit you don't need.
Right.
And I have a couple other companies doing the same thing. $100 per seat, $150 per seat. I got one. I think I probably spent 150, 200 grand a year on, and it's just like, man, I might just grab an AI tool, write some code, and create my own fucking product.
Hmm.
Like and that's what Chamath was getting at, right? So gonna get to the point, because it's you messed around with some of the code stuff. It's like, hey, give me the code for a left-sided, sidebar and WordPress, and the code
Yeah.
pops out.
Yeah. It's
And
amazing.
yeah, at some point I'm gonna build my own CRM system again, like I did back in the day, except I'm not gonna have to lay all the code. Um, because it's just so goddamn expensive, man.
Yeah.
Oh, let's not even talk about all the integrations, right? Like, well, I need this software to talk to that software. Well, that's gonna be another $59 a month per user.
Hmm.
Like, for an API link per user? I don't know, man.
I just feel like that business model is just, it's had its heyday. And in a ZERP environment, probably,
I gotta find this clip. I saw it on Instagram maybe. It's from I think it's an old comedy show. The guy's in a doctor's office, and he's like, how many drinks you have a day? And the guy's like, I'm good for 10 or 12. And the doctor's like, you have 10 or 12 beers a day? And he goes, oh, you got them beers too? And that's how I feel about all these SaaS products. It's $59 for the API too. Like,
yeah.
it's everything. It's like, you want the mobile app? It's an extra $9 per month for the mobile. And at what point can you say, look, I spent $250,000 a year on this. Can I just develop my own? Hell, spend 500,000. I'll spend 2 years worth of money to have my own software.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously.
And then it's like, shit. Kind of makes sense though, right?
Yeah. 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 That was an interesting conversation. It kind of led them to talking about Saxon as Slack killer. I know you've probably got some thoughts on Slack because companies use it.
So my takeaway from that, and I listened to a little bit more of that than I did the Carter thing, but I still fast forwarded. So that's in a hurry, man. I gotta get this shit done. You're talking about the endless channels,
Yes.
and I'm like, then don't allow people to make channels. That's what I do. Because as I grew up in tech as a teenager, I was on that forefront in the '90s. I saw how people use tech. I was involved in everything back in Microsoft's, servers, Novell, all the way up to things like Oracle and SAP. And you saw how people manipulated systems, circumvented the systems. They didn't want to do things the right way. And how much they got bogged down in tech and wasted so much time. So my upbringing, like core set of, if you want a group chat, I guess you can't really stop that. Actually, maybe you can. I've not looked. Like the direct message part. Other than that, here's a core set of channels that are like around certain functions or needs. Don't let anyone else create channels because you'll end up with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of channels.
Hmm.
And then it gets to the point to where you open up Slack and there's so many unread messages. And it's like, well, you're in there wasting time posting the forking thing. And then every time you post it, there's 34 members in that channel. So now 34 people are in there reading. Like, it's a time suck, man. So I get it, especially with the work from home. It does tie people together. Everything has a cost. And this does bring people together. But the last thing you want is 300 channels when 275 of them really don't need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I really had from that point. And when they're saying all that, and I'm like, just stop people from making channels. And
Simple.
but when you look at, people can send 10,000 messages a month or something like that. You can get so bogged down communicating. Before, like there's a certain bar of time and energy you had to put into writing an email. And the next thing you know, you got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Slack conversations going back and forth. How productive do you think that allows you? And focus, do you think that allows you to be on the course of a day?
Oh, yeah. It's bad. It's bad.
It's bad because you end up sending 100, 200 messages a day. And it's like, well, that's 500 to 1,000 messages a week, or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 messages a month. Like, how do you stay focused?
Yeah.
And then you got your phone in your hand, and people are, on their text message and all the other stuff, and it's no wonder productivity sucks. So I got what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess to kind of close us out, the last thing that they talked about was kind of the DEI debate. I don't know, we probably don't want to dive into that too much, but there was a part at the end of the episode where Chamath talks about the nuclear family. I know we had an offline conversation about this. I wonder if you want to go into that now a little bit.
Yeah, we can jump in that. The one DEI thing I thought was with JCal said something I always say. Was JCal. And I always say, like, I wish we would actually get to the root of the problem. And then you always say, like, we're in this country where we're not very good at solving problems. We're good at throwing money at stuff and creating laws and rules and regulations. I said some of that probably, but we're not good at fixing stuff. And if JCal's like, we got to give the ability to have more access to education to kind of level the playing field. And I see where DEI incentives certainly help. But if we go all the way back to like kindergarten and like the educational aspect and the mathematics and the STEM and all these different things, and give people the tools they need, I think in a way some of the DEI stuff ends up solving itself. But we don't ever want to seem to do that, right? It's I was reading a comment like, the old Tupac quote. He's like, "You got money for wars, but you can't feed the poor." We'll send $100 billion to Ukraine, but for $100 billion, I always say, well, man, you could have opened up like a math center in 50 major cities in this country and gave it to underserved children and help give them a math boost. Like, when do you ever see money like that get used in that way?
No, you don't.
So,
You don't. Yeah.
You don't. It's crazy what we'll make money for, man. It's if we want to fix the problem, we actually got to fix the problem, and I don't see us doing that. So until we actually start doing that and allocating money and actually trying to change things, I don't know if things are going to change. We can create all the rules and regulations and processes and programs, but if we can't go reach the people and help the people that need it the most, how do you expect the outcome to change? So,
I think that part of that, just quickly here, James, is w- we don't have the ability really as a society, at least in this country, I feel, to look at issues honestly enough, like truly honestly enough, such that we can come to the actual underlying cause of what's happening, right? Because everybody looks at anything through whatever political lens they hold themselves to, and then whatever kind of other biases and things that they feel like it's part of their identity. I reckon, I'm inclined to believe that most things in this world are like mathematics, right? Like if you really dive down to what is like 1 plus 1, things like education, things like this, I bet you could diagnose it down if everybody was just completely honest about what is happening to an underlying cause. And if we could just have an honest debate about what that cause is, then we could probably fix it. But I don't think we're ever comfortable enough as a society to have an honest conversation about what that underlying thing is.
do you ever think like maybe they don't want to fix it?
That's the yeah. I mean, that's where the kind of natural thinking would go to.
It's like, do you just want to keep people down and like J. Cal mentioned, like look, the wealthy parents are gonna send. I'm ad libbing here. They're gonna send their kid the Kumon or the Mathinism. Like the people that can afford it are gonna send their kids to get the extra boost. And look, our public schools suck in many areas. I mean, even my school wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. I think we were doing earth science still in like the 9th or 10th grade. I bought my own algebra books and taught myself. It's nuts. And I'm thinking that's not even that bad compared to what I saw in Southwest Detroit. And it's like, well, you never had a chance, right? And
Right.
I look at the money we spend on stuff, and it's like, man, we could have had such an impact with the amount of money we blew over the last. I mean, we printed $6 or $7 trillion, and we'll spend $25 million to put electric charging stations in a city, and it's like, man, why don't you set up like a STEM center where people who want it's other thing, people that want to change their life, that whether they're adults and they want to change their life, or their parents that want the best for their. If there's people that want to make an effort to do better, give them the resources. Nah, man, let's do some heated sidewalks and put in some Tesla charging stations.
Right.
I don't know if we want to fix the problem. And from someone that just didn't have that great of a public education, I'm thinking, man, there's so many things we could do. It's they talked about getting rid of SATs and ACTs to make it easier to get into school, and it doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
Get
Right.
people the resources they need at a younger age so they have the higher SAT. And if they're going to go into engineering or medical, do you not want them to have the best flipping education possible? But we won't do that.
Mhm.
And it's nice to hear J. Cal say it, because I do think that's a root cause of,
Yeah.
if we want to get better as a country, access to the resources people need who can't afford it. And Kane, we can afford a lot of shit, come to find out.
Yes,
gonna
more
find
than we thought.
way more than we thought. It's look at where all the money went. And they talk about even I was talking to somebody for the school loan forgiving. It's like we want to forgive a lot of the school loans, and I'm like, well, if we're gonna put that on the books, right, someone's gonna pay for that. So if we're gonna put that money on the books somewhere, imagine if those billions of dollars that, I mean, some of those things needed to get forgiven. Like, I don't know the whole story, but some of those schools were scams. They're predatory. I'm not talking about that stuff. But a lot of the stuff, it's like we're gonna go forgive a bunch of school loans for people that already have a 4-year degree and make 6 figures. Like that. If you're gonna take that money and go put it into education for someone that needs it.
Right. Right.
And we don't do that, and then we never solve the problem. And I don't think this is a rocket science solution, Ken. I think we know the answer.
Right.
But for some reason, it's 2024, and we still won't do that. Hell, you hear about, parents and having to bring in pencils and teachers buying paper. Like, what are we doing?
Oh,
But it's just, blowing money all over the place, man. So,
yeah.
you had one more on Chamath.
On Chamath. Around nuclear. He mentioned a lot of this gets solved. A lot of our societal stuff gets solved if we place more of a premium on the nuclear family. I just like that as a comment. It was right at the end of the episode. They touched on it really quickly, but I think it's something that I'd love to hear them speak on more. I know it triggered a big conversation between me and you.
I mean, yeah, because I grew up in it. And, that was my neighborhood. It's single parents, or if they weren't single parents, the father worked 7 days a week. And, our whole neighborhood was ruled by the threat of wait until your father gets home. And that's it. There was no discipline during the day. We got some crazy stuff. Like, I almost burnt my backyard down at like 7 years old. It's nuts. There's no one watching you. And if you did get in trouble, you didn't get in trouble until the father came home, right? And then you start thinking like, well, what if the father's not around? Like, our neighborhood was a free for all, right? And that stability of having both parents learning, from both of them, right? They both bring something to the table. Um, we're going down this path of not only, you had the issues with just, single parent homes in general, but now there's like a movement of the younger generations where they don't want to get married at all. And it's like, well, how's co-parenting going to work? And you may not like it. You may not like the idea of marriage, but if you're going to have kids, having two parents in the same house that have a good relationship, the last time I checked the research, has a direct, effect and outcome on the child. And coming from, my parents probably got, 6 marriages between them. It's insane. Um, I know that's a small sample size. That's one, but how many times have I seen that story? And Chamath has a point. If we're going to keep bringing up, you want to bring up the next generation of doctors and problem solvers and engineers and people that are really going to change the world, you need both parents there, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I guess this is probably a conversation for another time. But there's just there's so many things that branch off from that, right? It's the commitment to the family, the commitment to kind of sharing resources, right? Like, I think 2 incomes typically better than 1 for in most cases. Like, there's a lot that goes into it that makes the kind of nucleus of a household and the nucleus of a family better if you've got like that. You're just able to provide more, I think, for kids, because there's a bit more stability there. I agree.
No, I mean, by the time when I was 12, I was living with my dad. My dad worked 7 days a week. I was home by myself every day. If not home, I would leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd go down to the park. We'd play basketball till sundown. My dad didn't know where I was at, and I was 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
In the morning, he'd leave me a couple bucks so I could get a Coke and a slice of pizza. That was life. Look, yeah, sure, I turned out fine. I made something of myself and all that jazz, but most of the people I know that came from those homes didn't.
Right.
And it's hard being a single parent between, the work, and if they're younger and the daycare, like it's not glamorous, man. And sure, there's always these stories of there was a strong father, a strong mother, and raised a good kid. I mean, there's always those stories. I've just not seen it in mass quantity, and from my own personal experience. And whether it's 2 people working with dual income or one person staying home and actually having like you had kids, they're supposed to be a product of your environment, right? They're supposed to be a product of you.
Yeah.
And if you're not around to teach them how to be a good person, how to be mindful, how to be not be an asshole these days. It seems like a lot of assholes out there. Like, if you're never around because you're both working all the time, well, that's not good either. But at least there's resources, right? You got the money to send them to the math tutor and do this and do that. And do you not want to give your kids the best chance? Period. And
Yeah, so I could just go small last note for me. It goes back to that kind of inability to look at the actual underlying root cause. Because if you look at you know, I don't know. I think as an Asian myself, you get tagged with that model minority thing. But if you just kind of look at some of the factors that go into why kids of certain backgrounds do better than others, there's just things that you could probably point to. But one of them is probably the nuclear family.
I mean, it's the families try to stay together, and then all their resources often go into the child.
Yeah, exactly.
It's but again, it goes back to it's hard to do if you're a single parent and or you don't have the income. And my dad worked in a steel factory 7 days a week. We had enough money to get by, but there wasn't one time he mentioned going to college.
Right.
It wasn't. It was never in my. It was never in my cards. In fact, when I turned the first day I turned 18, I ended up getting a job in a steel factory just like him. Thank God I got out of that, and I took my ass back to the bookstore and read a bunch of books. But that was my path. Fall in the shoes, and there's no going to math tutors or there's none of that stuff.
Hmm.
It's just work. I had 3 jobs when I was 16, 17 years old. And, because my mom ran off, who knows where she was even at. And, but sometimes I think we watch these things on TV or we read about them online about the single parent, and it's like, man, just living in it ain't always that great. And, yeah, if I always say, if you had 2 parents that are still together that were somewhat decent to you, you have such an advantage.
Right. Right.
Like, and not even from a fiscal standpoint, just if you had 2 loving parents that somewhat got along and they stayed in your life, is such an advantage over having they grew up with one parent. But we're definitely trending away from that, where the new generations don't want to get married. Hell, Elon's out there complaining we're not going to have enough people to work because we're not having enough kids. That's a whole other problem. But there is something about if you have both decent parents in one household, raising children and setting the examples. And what you learn about kids really fast is if you don't tell them what they can and can't do, they'll never go to sleep, they'll never brush their teeth, they'll never shower, they'll certainly never eat anything green, right? And
Yes.
the amount of guidance they need to come out good. Yeah, you basically need both parents or like showing them the way.
Yeah. Well said.
But anyways, you can read about that in my next book. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I look forward to it.
I meant me and you. I'm talking to everybody else. You've already heard it from me 50 times. Anyways, anything else to wrap this up?
No, generally a good episode, I thought.
Not too bad. Hopefully, I do want to out of All-In. I do like the VC, money talk, private equity, and I don't mind when I'm happy they're away from the politics. Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't mind it. You asked me earlier. I didn't tune into any of those things, and even for the Carter thing, I skipped all that crap. So, cap table saw. Oh my God, I'm going to sleep. So, all right, man. I'll catch you in the next one.
All right.